Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave as we get started for a little bit of a later morning over here from a very rainy, like serious storm going on right now in the middle of summer, Helsinki, Finland. It feels like it's literally fall. Anyways, plenty to talk about on Bitcoin price action. As a short and medium term time frame ranges to the upside were actually broken. Sorry, not the medium term, but the short term time frame range to the upside was broken. So how does that change things around? It actually was biased to the downside yesterday, so I will be wrong on that. But how does that fit into the analysis on the medium and higher term time frames? Well, we'll be talking about that at length today. And then more importantly, or just as important perhaps, and also easier said, want to take a look at traditional markets as well, as they have been the canary in the coal mine for all the good things essentially. Anyways, put the emphasis right now on the Krown Chain application, which can be found at app.krownchain.net. We do see that open interest actually coming back down below the 2 billion marker, but we still have yet to see a breakage of the high term time frame range. That range still being between about 8,900 to the downside and 9,900 to the upside, both respectively for a big breakout to the downside or the upside. And realistically, Bitcoin, as long as we're kind of between those two areas, not really any major occurrences to really be talking about, to be quite honest with you. However, short and medium term time frames are certainly very tradable because the ranges are, that's $1,000 range. So, there's plenty of opportunity to be had between there. However, for my own trading behavior, I want to be very direct in saying this. I actually have not been trading spot for a while now. Just been trading options on Bitcoin if I do get the itch to put something on, put some risk on. But even then, I'm really waiting for the next big move to be quite frank. Anyways, looking at the Bitcoin dominance, we do see it's coming down to a 62.5% read right now. Very interesting, as I believe I was short-term bullish on that one. So I want to revisit that one. I'm curious exactly where that's coming in from. But more importantly, Fear and Greed Index taking up about 3 points to a 44 from a 41, just oscillating between the low 40s and the upper 40s, as Bitcoin has been, moving its way up more than 2x from the lows in March. This whole way through, still kind of remain in the fearful zone. So I would say that still kind of, helps out the bullish case long term. But let's talk about actual price action right here as we get into it, wasting no more time. And let's start off with traditional markets. NASDAQ futures once again making new all-time highs. We said yesterday, very likely a pullback back down to test around. Where's our drawing tools? Yeah, pull back down here to test around our lower horizontal, down around the low 10,600s. We got that, and then the reaction was phenomenal. I mean, what more can you ask for? Opens on your lows, rallies up immediately to new all-time highs, and breaking out above major long-term trend lines along the same way. We have not just met the measured move from this formation right here, this ascending triangle formation right here, but we've also now exceeded it alongside surpassing the algo target of 1.272 right here on the fibs, which would likely initiate the next measured move towards 141.4 actually, to be exact, coming off of the inverted head and shoulders that we identified in March. Left shoulder, mid-March head, and right shoulder being put in early April, and that's still very viable. I mean, as long as we're kind of riding this uptrend, I don't really see any real reason to not have that available. And seeing the strength within this and how it's just kind of running away from everyone, I do think that 11,000 still gets hit. I don't really have anything else to add over there. This is just the bullish chart from fucking heaven essentially. And what does this remind you of? Well, if you were around here for the last 3 years, probably reminds you of 2017 if you're trading traditional markets. And that's if you were trading Bitcoin in 2017, I should be exact, because Bitcoin was doing similar things to this. Actually, maybe a little more akin to maybe like a Tesla, which we can check out as well. And same sort of chart here too. I mean, this is just a phenomenal move. If you would have bought 1,000 shares of Tesla down here to like $300, I think you would be printing like $1 million right now in profit, which is not bad for traditional markets in the span of less than a year. I mean, that's actually pretty fucking crazy. And Tesla looking like it's going to make new all-time highs with flying colors coming into next week as well. This was a phenomenal close on the highs. While I do think that it's frothy, and while I do think that it's at some point it's going to probably end in tears, still some more upside to come in the short and medium term time frames. At the very least, I would be expecting new all-time highs coming into next week, and I don't really have any real reason to be even medium term bearish as long as this one's above 1,300. Is there any real targets to be made to the upside here? I don't think so, because I don't think that I don't see any formations here going on that would make that viable. Maybe we could come up with an algo target by doing something like this. I typically don't like doing shit like this, but but we can see what it prints here as, let's see if it lines up. So I'm using a fib retracement from, let's go with this high right here, and let's see how this lines up. So we do have the gap at the one spot 272. We don't really have anything at the one spot 414, so I don't really like how that matches up, but we are right at the two even right there. So, you know, technically speaking, what would be the next algo target? Maybe up to two spot 272 region at a little bit north of 1700, but overall, I don't really trust that in this region here. This is just overall bullish, and we're kind of, you know, getting towards, not just getting towards, but we are in a parabolic market right here, which again, you know, if you remember Bitcoin in 2017, if you know, everyone knew, you know, everyone who wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid knew that this was going to end in tears. But the thing is that do you just blindly short into this area right here? Fuck no. Do you blindly short in this area right here? No, fuck no. I mean, this was like a $10,000 move in the course of like 2 weeks. It's just insane, and that's what typically does happen during parabolic moves, because what everyone's trying to do, all the smart people are trying to short right now. And when you have people trying to short in a market that's just straight up, you know, at some point, are they going to be right? Probably yes. I mean, eventually you were right on Bitcoin, but the game right now is, and this is certainly the game on NASDAQ and definitely Tesla. I mean, Jesus Christ, this is, I mean, it's clear as day, that, you know, right now the game is to liquidate the shorts. People are trying to blindly short this the whole way through. I'm sure there's a lot right here at about 1200, probably 1300 and 1500 as well, respectively. And the game right now is, well, we can just drive it up a little bit more, liquidate them out, and then once their licks start to get hit, then we can bring it down and put in the top. So how much longer does this have to go? Don't know, but I would imagine anytime between now and the election is probably free game, as market probably does move on that, especially if anyone but Trump wins. And I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm also not a Trump hater. I don't care about politics. In fact, my life's philosophy is to be in a position where I'm not reliant on who's king of the world, essentially. But with that said, if anyone but Trump does win, I would imagine that that we're going to see major highs being put in traditional markets, and that's going to be when the tears start flowing, very likely around that time, maybe a little bit before, maybe a little bit after, who knows. But I do think that, you know, if you're just trying to blindly short this right now, probably not the best idea. As realistically, this can go on for a few more months, and if you're getting into short positions here, I mean, don't be surprised if this moves, you know, if this moves quite a fair bit against you. And I'd be saying the same thing about NASDAQ futures as well. I'm looking for new all-time highs coming into next week. You know, could this thing pull back? Yeah, absolutely. It probably does pull back and retest the breakout trend line that it closed above yesterday at 10,700, 10,750. Same thing as what we were looking at coming into yesterday with the retest of 10,600, and it passes it with flying colors. I'd be targeting 11,000 coming into the next few weeks, or maybe the next month, whatever it ends up being. New all-time highs very, 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 very likely to continue into next week, and we'll kind of analyze it back after that on very low term time frames. I mean, it's a clean breakout. Volume looks good. Momentum oscillators look good. Looks very healthy. Looks very constructive. And I'd be looking for more here. I'd be looking for more. Looking at E-mini futures for SPY, same sort of thing. Closing the daily after retesting our area right around 310. I'm not saying this to sound arrogant. I'm mostly saying it because I was wrong on Bitcoin, and I think that I've been a lot more confident in traditional markets recently. But, you know, all ego aside, it is worth mentioning that, yeah, we did test back down to the 21. The Placid with flying colors closing on new highs as well. And the weekly is going to have a massively strong closure there too, closing above the horizontal liquid zone of the daily, not on the weekly though. So I do still think that short term, very likely to head up to like 323 region. And probably plays out like a short-term pullback from there. But ultimately, I don't think that this one's done just yet. I really like the way that the major moving averages are situated on both the weekly and the daily, all maintaining the lower periods above higher periods with all positive slopes on top of that. Daily looks even more obvious with the golden cross happening right here. Tested 2 dildos before there. Passes with flying colors on the retest right here, 25th of June. And then boom, massive move up as we do put in higher lows and looking like some sort of a bullish reaccumulation formation going on right here as well. Again, above all major moving averages, as they all diverge away from each other with all the lower periods above higher periods. Looks really, really good to me. And I do think that this one's, again, going to be headed towards about 323 region next week. And then probably does, probably does make the leap up towards 334, 335 region after that. And then we'll come back and assess it. Obviously not as strong as NASDAQ. NASDAQ's going to be the clear winner in all of this parabolic boolah-ishness. But strong nonetheless. Strong, very, 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 very strong nonetheless. Looking at momentum oscillators, daily RSI is very constructive here, very healthy. Looking at daily Stokes looks very. I mean, this is what you expect to see during a strong trending market. That's completely fine. If you saw that on Bitcoin, maybe a different read, but Bitcoin doesn't have as much history. Looking at a weekly, same thing. It looks good to me, man. Looks good. Let's go check out. I want to check out a few of the other one-off stocks like Microsoft. Not as strong as the other ones. Kind of putting in a little bit of an island top right there. Now, I do think that Microsoft and Apple probably have played out most of their rallies in comparison to the rest of the market because they were leading it for for most of the time, and then we're going to go into rotations. So the next sort of set of strong stocks are going to start to rally up, and then we rotate around, and we'll go sector by sector most likely. But I think that the techs are probably, or at least like the high tech techs, like the Microsofts and the Apples. Probably going to take a little bit, or they're probably still going to move up here, but they're probably going to not going to have as impressive gains from here as your next tier that probably gets rotated after this, which I think is what we're in the process of seeing right now. So we'll see how long they can keep up these markets with these with the way that they rotate it. But I would suspect that going into around election time, we should see that we should either see a major reversal around that time, or if Trump wins again. I don't really know how to interpret that right off the bat. I'd probably expect more of the same. An initial pullback as that gets confirmed, because usually you're going to play opposite of the news, and the perceived news there would be good for business. But I would be looking for that pullback to be a massive opportunity. More long term. Anyways, again, not a political statement. I really dislike getting into politics. I'm not a political person myself. I don't support any of the candidates. I also don't hate any of the candidates. I think that people who spend all their time talking about that shit is just a fucking distraction. And I'll get off the topic right now. Anyways, go into Bitcoin now. And so yesterday I was looking for a move down to about $9,000 low. Is that still in the cards? Is that still viable for Bitcoin right here? I would have to say with the strength in traditional markets, probably unlikely, because while Bitcoin is not necessarily benefiting or the main beneficiary of the strength in traditional markets, it does make it difficult for it to trade macro it does make it difficult for the macro trend to be contrary to traditional markets. They typically move together on the macro, and we've done a billion different case studies into this by now. You can definitely check out some of the videos from like half a year ago, or on Twitter. There is a long Twitter thread kind of documenting my thoughts alongside the data on that correlation. But for anyone with just a set of eyes and a few tools, I mean, you can see very, very clearly and very easily. I don't really think that you need math to see this one, although it does help to confirm, as it certainly does confirm. But at the end of the day, what are we seeing here? Do we even want to do this right now? Well, we might as well do it. Just kind of prove a point, I suppose. But here's your what is this, SPY? Yeah, it's SPY. And we can compare, of course, I don't know, let's compare like Stamp, because it has some good history there. And we'll put them both on log scale here, and you can see for yourself, and I'll let you decide for yourself, do these guys move together on the macro together? Well, it would appear so. They actually both dumped up at the same time. And actually, no, we do need to get, hey, if we want to do this right, we should probably do this right, huh? We'll do BLX index because it has more history. BLX, yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, you can see that when they both started, both rallying on the macro, plays out massive pullback right here to start off 2011, then massive macro up, then big pullback. Well, Bitcoin's pullbacks are obviously a lot more aggressive than traditional markets, and their ups are a lot more aggressive too. Comes with the territory. Both plays out big pullbacks in 2014 region, then again in 2018 right here, or beginning of 2018, puts in their lows about a year later and beginning of 2019. Again, big ups throughout 2019 as Bitcoin goes back to 14 and traditional markets actually make new all-time highs. Then they both come down massively together as well, down to this region here. more recently, and now rallying off there with traditional markets kind of leading the way into new all-time high territory first for NASDAQ. So fair enough. Anyways, getting rid of this right here, and let's focusing back on the data once again. Let me go back to my dildos, and let's see. So yeah, I think that traditional markets, just in general, NASDAQ, SPY, it's all mostly the same thing, or they're mostly going to be moving together in the same way on the macro as well. And my point is that the strength there does make it difficult for me to be, bearish on Bitcoin, looking for it to break down. While that's, still looking good, at least for another week of new highs, man, at least for another week. Looks pretty damn good to me. Now, can Bitcoin still come back down and stab around 9,000? Yes, I do think so, especially over the weekend right now, because the weekend is typically going to be ripe with a good old fuckery for this asset. If there's ever going to be a time to get a nice little liquidity hunt down into this region, weekends would be the best time for that, just because there's probably less people trading around this time, and with less people trading, it would be easier to move around price action. But what are we likely to get? We're likely to get just a range. We're likely to get a range. And what is a range here? Well, actually, the range kind of does accurately represent that. You can see that we're still stuck within this blue box territory right here. It does look like it wants to break to the upside, but I'd probably wait for confirmations first. And again, it's a weekend. I don't trade during this time. I'm not interested in this unless it's something completely obvious. By the same token, the range low to the downside would be anywhere between about 9,000 to 8,950-ish region. We could probably raise this up a little bit. But I do want to keep it consistent with the fib down here at 236, which is relative to the higher term timeframes. Jesus, man, that was loud. But more importantly, let's look at the momentum oscillators for the lower term timeframes. Again, keeping that it is a weekend in mind. 4-hour Stokes headed up right now, and they will remain to the upside as long as Bitcoin price action maintains 91.50 on a 4-hour closing basis. That is the last kind of local low that the 4-hour did put in, by the way. And how does that kind of transpire down into the lower timeframes in that 3-hour right here? Showing about the same thing. Does have a competing trend line going this way, which is governing the bullish control zone, which is very interesting. But that would also imply that it does get a few more ticks to the upside. And at this price point right here, it's very likely to at least test the top side of blue box and probably surpass it. So what am I looking for if Bitcoin does close above the blue box territory at 9,400 on at the very least a 2-hour? And preferably a 4-hour, although 2-hour probably does get it, and the 2 hours looking constructive here. I'd be looking for a retest of about 9,400-ish region, but it's a very difficult read here because we don't have anything, or actually, let me get through the lower term time frame oscillators first before I wrap up that idea. 2-hour Stokes are hitting this trend line and turning down right now, so we do see a little bit of pressure right here. So it's not all said and done just yet that we actually have completed a closure above that region, and should be looking north. But I'm curious how the hourly is going to fit within this. The hourly is looking constructive as well for another try to the upside, coming down this whole way, while Bitcoin essentially is going to try to put in a higher low here on an hourly. So how does that all fit into the greater picture? Well, do we see any sort of divergence plays be made here? First and foremost, let's see. What about on a 4-hour? Nope, don't see anything here. What about on a 2-hour? Nope, don't see anything here. What about an hourly? Don't see maybe some hidden bearish divergence here. Yeah, a little bit of hidden bearish divergence between this point and this point, but it's still in the process of trending. So I think it would be relevant to say that we've already seen that play out between 93.20 all the way down to 92.50. It is just an hourly, so can't really expect too much on top of that. So realistically, the ranges are so fucking tight here, man. I do not like playing. This is not my game right here. This is not my game. I'm sure that there's other people out there making shit tons of money in a range like this. Not me. I'm not interested in trading this. This is not for me. Anyways, if we do want to kind of siphon this off a little bit more, what we can look at is this trend line that's been governing our highs ever since 1st of June, actually, all the way a little bit north of $10,000. And why is this significant? Well, it's got this high right here, this high right here, this high right here, this high right here. And it would also suggest that, if Bitcoin does give another try to the upside, is 9,400 likely? Yes, but the trigger for a trade like this is so close to begin with. This is the point that I'm trying to make. I'm not interested in this because what's your fucking risk? Well, All right, so you're gonna, I don't know, like what is gonna be your risk on a trade? Like where do you manage risk on a trade like this? I mean, you could do it multiple ways, but how much can you reasonably target for an upside move if you still gotta deal with this trend line right here, which is still creating your lower highs, and that has been respected for the last month and a half now. You know, I usually don't like I don't like diagonal trend lines, and you'll naturally find that all of these diagonal rejections do naturally line up with horizontals as well. I just don't have them plotted in there, and this one would as well, and actually even match up with the 200 simple almost too. So it makes it difficult, but my point is that we haven't really had a change of behavior for over a month now, creating these lower highs within this trajectory. So as long as we're below the last prior lower high, which in this case is 94.35 on a closing basis for GDAX, there's no change of behavior here from a medium-term time frame perspective. Short-term time frames, yeah, we've seen oscillations to and fro, but medium-term time frames are even becoming less and less usable for trading edge right now, just because the ranges are too small. So risk reward doesn't really make too great of mathematical sense here if you're going to be trading spot. Can it be done? Yes. Is it going to require some serious patience and some serious planning? Yes, absolutely, as does any trade. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. By the same token, can Bitcoin come back down and stab these levels? Yes. I don't think that, even if Bitcoin was going to stab down into these levels, I'd be looking for opportunities here. Again, keeping the general strength in traditional markets in mind. And we'll also look at the general crypto sphere as well. But my point is that we are on a weekend, and while Bitcoin could very easily test down to this region, it's not that I'm looking for this price. Here's what I can say. And I'll give you some insight in my trading if you're a little bit unfamiliar with myself or kind of like what my perspective is. I'm happy to take a trade down here. I'm happy to take a trade more or less right here as well, but not in the middle of this fucking range. Fuck this, man. Fuck that. Could you make it work? Yes. Do I like taking trades like that? Have I had great success taking trades like that? Fuck no. Jesus Christ, man. It just seems to be making like the game harder for yourself than it really needs to be. So we are on a Saturday. So what do you expect? Sideways in a nice tight range. Probably 9,400s governing your highs and 9,000 governing your lows. Something like that is what I'd be looking for, if anything. And if we get a wick into one of those sides, I'd look at it as a nice scalp play, if anything. This is just not interesting to me as a trading asset right here. Let's look at a 12-hour. I'm curious what the medium-term time frames are printing right now. 12-hour looks like it might have set in a higher low right here. It's very difficult to call it right now. I think it would be a little bit too premature. Let's look at where momentum oscillators are kind of turning around. So very interesting, very, very interesting. All right, so now that we can kind of put the puzzle pieces together, here's what I do like about the 12-hour. If the 12-hour closes back above 9,420, great number. If it can actually close back above there, it will turn momentum on the 12-hour back up to the upside, which has been a cheat code for the last 2.5 years now. What's interesting about that is we'd also be printing in a higher high as well and confirming this certainly as a higher low. So we'd have low, higher low, higher low. So 3 higher lows. We'd have high, higher high, higher high. 3 higher highs and continuation on top of that with momentum turning in the same direction. That would start to look pretty damn good and really start to play into the higher term timeframes. So while I have been spending a lot of time on the lower term timeframes right here, keep in mind, I would not be trading these, but I do think that the higher term timeframes, the 12-hour and above, are actually showing some interesting things right now. And what do I mean by that? Well, looking at the 2-day, we still do have the hidden bullish divergence in play between this point, and this point, correlating with this low at 86, this low at 89, and this slew of lows at like 991. And so, if we were to head up to that next critical point, close either a 4-hour or a 12-hour above 9,420, technically a 12-hour, but 4-hour probably does it anyways. Then I would be looking for extension all the way up to the top side of the range, which is still around 9,900, give or take $50, we'll call it. Somewhere up around there. Does it move like a snail? Probably yes, if that does happen. But the trigger for me is, and this is the key point in a video like this, And seeing as this is minute number 23, so all of the spoon boys have already clicked off this video, we can speak a little bit more directly. If Bitcoin moves back above this level right here, I would be looking for it to pop back up to like 9,900-ish region. Does that insinuate that we're going to break out the top immediately after that? No, just like breaking to the downside right here doesn't necessarily do that until we actually have a full closure below the critical point of, on a daily schedule, 9,000, on a 4 hour, I think it's like 8,900. So keep all these things in mind, because it's not really revealed on the short-term timeframes, but the 12 hours relationship to the 2-day and 3-day do show it, and I do trust a lot more on these higher-term timeframes. The 3-day also really brings this point full circle. So the 3-day does have that same sort of hidden bullish divergence here in play. 1, 2, 3, correlating with the same lows that we see on price action. But what's even more powerful here is that you can see that Bitcoin's really been trying to ride the 3-day 21x benchmark average right here, which is good. But what's even more important on top of that is during this whole time, 3-day Stokes have been coming down ever since early fucking May, at the start of this consolidation within this region. So you can look at that as a bullish reset, essentially, is the picture that I'm painting, especially if we move above the last 3-day high. Because what's that going to do? Well, if we turn on a reverse Stoke indicator cross, actually, we don't even need to close above there. We just need to close above the 21x benchmark average, which is 91.80 or 91.90 actually on this time frame, and that will turn 3-day momentum back up to the upside, rejecting the bearish control zone. Has plenty of space there, all within the guise of a consolidation, which would be marked off as a healthy consolidation at that point, with hidden bullish evidence on top of that. Very likely does come along the side of the 12-hour, working its way back up towards this prior high right here as well, turning its momentum around at the same time above 94.20, and then we can target a move, like I said, back up to the top side of the range, somewhere around 9,900, maybe 10,000 if you just want a nice even round number, more or less the same essentially. And this is all coming along the side, or sorry, the knowledge that historical volatility percentile has just been in a very long contraction phase, which does suggest that the next big breakout is or breakdown, because it's still very much viable, is going to be catastrophic for the losing side. In this case right here on the 3-day, we do see a nice orderly contraction, and I do think that we are kind of due for a test up to this trend line and keep on playing out the long-term contraction phase, which probably correlates with the macro levels. The macro levels being to the upside 11,500 on a weekly closure, and to the downside below 6,900. That's when things really do start to take a macro change of behavior. For right now, Bitcoin's kind of on a macro, a macro range bound, if you want to be super specific. Technically an uptrend as well, but I do think that it's very perspective giving if you want to look at the higher term timeframes, like the bi-monthly and the quarterly. The bi-monthly does have a massive range here, but the overall bias for the bi-monthly is to the upside, obviously. But the problem is that I would still, the bi-monthly is very obviously bullishly biased. The problem with this is that it does show a range all the way down to like 7,900, 8,100-ish region, which I do think is very possible for Bitcoin to still have a quick stab down there, wash out a lot of over-leveraged longs, and then frustrate them by them technically being right, but having the wrong position or the wrong timing for their position. So I would still keep that in the back of my mind's eye, because if Bitcoin does break below, let's call it 9,000 on a daily or 8,900 on a 4 hour, it very likely will at the very least test 8,150 and probably even mid 7,000s, which is where the 21 comes in around. Now, bi-monthly momentum oscillators are pointed north right here, although we don't really have that much price action history, so it doesn't help all that much. But this gets taken a step further with the quarterly, which looks rather healthy as well. Same sort of posturing on momentum oscillators, but a big range nonetheless. The 10 simple, just the 10 simples coming in right around 7,500. So do I still think that that's possible to get? Yes, absolutely, I do. And that's why I'm very conservative within these regions right now. But overall, the long term, as long as the quarterly is above 6,300 on even just a wick basis, that's your higher low right there. And this thing's still in the process of trending. And if you're looking at this as one whole, I mean, this is a consolidation over the last 3 years. Now, when we're talking about a 3-year consolidation, do we expect it to break out tomorrow or the next day? Fuck no. We're not even expecting it to break out maybe like this year. It can take some time, man. It's taken years. It can take a few more years. But my point is that very, very long term, I do still think that Bitcoin is bullish. Does that mean that Bitcoin can come down to 7,500? Yes, it can. If it really starts to become problematic, if it starts to come back down, especially below like 7,000, that's when it's like macro. Okay, something new maybe going on here. But for now, it's it's kind of a question of, all right, is Bitcoin going to put in a major low right here, or do we come down and wash some people out first and then revert back? I think also the 2-day 200 simple is a damn good indication of kind of where we are as well. This white moving average right here, it's been getting things more or less well for the eternity of Bitcoin. Not super scientific with it, but as long as Bitcoin's above it, it makes it very difficult to be bearish here. Looking for $1,000 move to the downside or more. Volume signature on this whole baby is really fucking mature. I mean, we're either due for resolution, like technically it will be forced into a decision on 20th of July. So in 9 days from today, we'll be forced into a decision, but that's not to say that it's not likely to decide before then. It's more likely to decide before then, to be very direct and clear. I do think that we get a resolution this week, this next coming week. Now I did say that for the week, not this past week, but the week before that, I was looking for resolution as well. I was wrong on that. And I can very well be wrong on this one again, but I would say that, when we're talking about statistics, this becomes more and more likely. And that's the only thing that you can really trust on in a game like this, or at least, if that's going to be your edge. Anyways, okay, cool. All right, let's go check out daily oscillators, daily Stokes working their way up. They did break the trend line a while ago on, where is my, yeah, there it is. That was the first big notification that we saw on 7th of July, and it's getting follow through on top of that on this low right here. Where exactly was that? Oh no, it's actually right here. Huh, interesting. Price action looking very strange alongside of it. I'm gonna get rid of this diagonal. I don't think it's too helpful, but I did want to show it for thoroughness' purpose. Getting some weatherman action going on right now. Looking at daily RSI. Don't really have anything to add here. I don't see any divergences. Don't see anything obvious from a major moving average perspective. I mean, as long as you're above all major moving averages, can't hate it. I don't really think it helps all that much, though, as well. That's the problem with this here. I'm curious to see if there's anything obvious for another market leader like Mr. Buterol. Mr. Buterol did come down to our target right around 235.5 and bounced off of it absolutely beautifully. Do you like that? Again, not saying that to sound arrogant, just saying that just to offset my failure to look for 9,000 in Bitcoin yesterday. No, of course not. Well, maybe a little bit of that. Got to protect my ego, There's people on the internet who hate me, but looking at this right here, consolidated at a high level is generally a good thing, of course. And I don't really have any real reason to be bearish on Buterol as long as he's above about 238. However, below 238, then we got some problems. Probably coming back down to the low 233 region. Overall, probably would be coming back down to about 230 in general, if that were to happen. But for right now, it looks like it's going to give another try back up to this high right here at around 247-ish, 246, 247 region. Looks very constructive, and a lot of talk's been had about this one in the program Discord, which for good reason. It's one of the better charts in crypto right now. In the short term, yes. Weekly does have a golden cross, which is fresh. That's your higher low right there. And, for all intents and purposes, you can make a great case for both sides here. And here's what I'd say as a trader. This is the beauty of trading. You don't need to be right in order to make money. You just need to know how to trade. And this area right here obviously is going to, if you are bullish, that's your higher low, consolidating at a high level, getting ready for potentially a major massive breakout, which would, theoretically be in the formation of, if I wanted to draw this one out, I'd be drawing a descending broadening wedge here, which is technically right. It is technically right. Now, at the end of the day, what do these areas line up with? Naturally, of course, the 200 simple on the weekly for upside resolution, and to the downside, well, we have a big range here to play out, so it's not really worth talking about right now, but it would carry all the way down to like 140-ish region, so it's not really appropriate to speak about it right now. But here's the thing. If you are bullish on this one and you are kind of preemptively playing out, you have a very obvious and natural stop loss or risk management point right here at what would be the higher low if that's what you're playing, 224, 225. Of course, this is not financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor, and this is the furthest thing away from trading advice. But it does. How often do you get opportunities like this to both the upside and the downside? Now, by the same token, if you are bearish, if you're looking at this and you're like, but Krown, listen, you're a fucking moron, and we're actually just hitting this right here. It's the same trend line that's synonymous with the 200 simple on the weekly. This thing's gonna get rejected again. This thing's fucking garbage, and they just pushed back another due date of epic proportions. That's bullish. No, just kidding. But I would say, you can make a case for that as well. And how would I trade that? Well, you could wait for it to take out this low right here at 214, and then target a move back down into the 150s maybe. You could do that. You could also use this as a risk management point, although a little bit less scientific, or the 200 simple on a closing basis. All fine. So multiple ways to skin a cat here, and Mr. Buteral, I would say, consolidating at a high level is usually going to be a good thing. What does the daily look like? It looks like a bull flag. So in that bull flag, I should note, does have, I believe, we've documented a measure move up towards the last prior high in early February at 280, 285 region. Okay, let's go look at Mrs. Litecoin. How's she looking? Kind of the opposite. Grinding out the top side of resistance, yes. Consolidating at a high level, yes, technically, but this one looks a lot more like obviously bearish, as it does have the descending triangle tilt to it. Weekly has a death cross rather than a golden cross compared to Mr. Buteral, and maybe we're seeing bifurcation in the greater market. Could absolutely be. I'm curious how the other ones are doing right now. Stellar. Really good. Really good. I'd be looking for this to get extended to 11.5 cents. I believe that we were actually bullish on this one yesterday, so maybe it's shitcoin paradise time. Monero I think is good as well, if I recall correctly. Yeah, looks good here, consolidated at a high level. And if the weekly can close above 60, if the weekly can close above $67, I'd be looking for this to work its way higher over time towards 89. I don't really have a time frame for that, but overall it looked good for some medium term to long term up to that level. XRP back at 20 cents. Death cross looming as it does try to put in a rally. I don't really trust this one. Still putting in lower highs as it stands. A lot of things in the way at about 21 cents, of which, given that last little rejection that we had thus far, I have a hard time believing that this one's going to just reverse from where it is right now. EOS, same sort of thing, very similar chart to Ripple, getting rejected at the weekly 21. Neo, getting rejected at 55, not good. Tron, I believe, was good. Yes, indeed it is. Yeah, Tron I'd look to extend all the way up towards 2 cents even. Looks good. Zcash, the fuck is this thing? Yeah, how about no? BNB, don't really have an easy one on this one either. Yeah, I don't know. Could go either way. I'd be looking for the general market to give direction on this one. I don't think that BNB is leading here. Very bizarre chart overall. It's just choppy as fuck, man. Like, Jesus Christ, how can anyone trade these goddamn altcoins? GBDC. Okay, GBDC is very interesting. Did confirm another lower high yesterday. Another fucking lower high. GBDC is obviously bearish. But has GBDC been a good influencer on spot price action for Bitcoin as of recent times? Not really, actually. Trading GBDC as an allegory for spot price action would not have been successful for the last like 6 months or so. Not very good. Okay, what is the other one that I'm missing? Let's go check out CMEs. That's one that I want to focus on here. Okay, so CMEs did close the week out on a little bit of a good closure there on Friday. Here's the problem though: the weekly looks. If I'm just looking at weekly CME, I'd be obviously bearish on this one. But the turnaround point for this is very verifiable and very documentable, which is what makes a good trade. And that would be this past week's high on CME, which is 95.70. As long as we're below there, I actually would be looking at this with bearish goggles. Now, by the same token, if we do take out last week's high at 95.70 on CME, which would be akin to 94.79 on spot, then I would look for extension of the top side of the range, 10,000 for CME, 9,900 for spot. And so all these things play together with each other, and you can really see a more clear picture. At least I would argue, at least for myself, that it's a lot more clear on the higher term timeframes. So the lower term timeframes, as you kind of saw me go through them, that just looks like fucking AIDS is what it looks like to me. I'd rather be focused on something like this right here, especially when this is so mature and we're so close to an actual resolution. Probably sound like a broken record there, but it is worth also noting that there is some legitimate bearish things in the cards as well. Weekly Stokes are problematic. This is the same read that has precipitated at least at minimum 30% pullbacks in the past and up to 70% pullbacks in the past. for verification on that, we can just go back here, and the read that I'm referencing is when weekly Stochs get above the critical zone and then come back down below the critical zones. That's each and every time we've seen major massive downs. You see this guy right here, like 44% down. You already know where I'm kind of going with a lot of these. You see this one right here, 60% down. Let's go to log scale. We have several examples in 2016 to 2018, which you have one right here, 30%. You got one right here, 36%. You got one right here. You already know. I don't think that there's any new people watching these videos to begin with, but just for thoroughness' sake, 33.5% right there, 34% right there, and 39% right there. So overall, not even remotely, not even remotely close to what we've done thus far, putting about the same read, although technically it's not confirmed just yet. Bitcoin has played out about a 70% down, 17% down. But to put that in perspective, if we were to elongate that to 30%, which is on the lower end, that would put Bitcoin at the mid 7,000s. With 40%, I believe that puts us at the 200 simple. Yeah, it does. 200 simple and 200 exponential average down here on the weekly. So that's why I do remain a little bit cautious, because any sort of weakness in traditional markets is going to hammer Bitcoin and probably be good enough to actually initiate that next move down, at the very least to the low 8,000s, probably the mid 7,000s. And then actually I do think that would be a massive opportunity going forwards there, because long term I don't think that you can really be, or at least I myself cannot be bearish on the higher term timeframes, like the monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly. It's just the ranges are so big. So it's like, what do? Do you just blindly buy here and then risk management's like $3,000 away? Go fuck yourself. It's just ridiculous, man. You can't make a living that way, or at least I would not be able to make a living that way. That just sounds like absolute suicide. Let's go check out some of the secondary things that we look at as well. Do we have anything obvious on daily Macds? No, not really. Still kind of gain momentum there. Did regain the median Bollinger Band here and using it to rally off of. That would also be a good positive thing for today as well, but needs to maintain above there and get continuation again in the areas that we spoke about. What else do we have? Bollinger Band's widths coming down to crazy levels that we just have only seen a few times in the history of Bitcoin. We already know that we've already documented that too many times though. Looking at the daily right here, momentum Bali and Pigs, or sorry, the 12-hour momentum Bali and Pigs moms did play out some downside momentum coming into that last low. But here's the thing, I really have too much to be made off that. I'm curious what the slope of the rings are. Yeah, still giving it a positive slope right there. Let's go back to we need future. I think I just selected the wrong one. Still positive nonetheless. Let's go to current now. And probabilities for these ranges, which are not the same as yesterday. In fact, we need to change them around. So, what do you use for a day like today when the range is basically between about 93.50 and 91.50 on a closing basis? On a wick basis, what is this, like 94.50 and 90.50? It's just not helpful. It's just not helpful, but we can look at it just anyways. Let's see. I'm going to go to a new chart entirely, actually. And let's plot it out right here. All right, so here's what I'd use for the top side. This is not going to be helpful. I apologize in advance. But basically on a 4-hour closing basis, 12-hour or daily, these probably all have slight. The only one that's really interesting is to the upside right here. To the downside is just too fraught with peril, because you have too many stops between there and about 89.50 to 8900-ish region. It's like, where exactly is your breakout point? I mean, maybe you could be using 91.50 as a trigger for a trade another $200 lower. I think that could work actually. Actually that could work if I'm going to be forced to use the lower term timeframes. To the upside, a lot more obvious though at 94.50 for a higher high. So let's go see what those probabilities would be looking like. So I believe it was 94.50 to the upside, and to the downside we'll use 91.50. Downside, I'm a lot less confident on this one. Upside probability for a 12-hour closure is 28.71% versus 32.7% to the downside. Remember though, the downside only correlates with about a $200 move. The upside correlates with about a $400 to $500 move, potentially to break higher, obviously, as well as the downside too. But you know, as far as like the documentable things that we were looking at on the 12-hour daily, 2-day, and 3-day, that's what I'm referring to. Looking at the daily right here, 33.08% to the upside versus 38.61% to the downside. Very even, very high, and again, letting us know that, you know, expect the unexpected over the, you know, in these next few days, realistically. So could it be that we actually do break on the, you know, over the weekend? Could be, yeah. This would be one of the perfect storms where if it did want to do it, it could very easily do it over the weekend. I mean, everything's working in its favor right now. Volume signatures, mature patterns, volatility, all of the above. And momentum oscillators on top of that as well. Looking at Bowling Picks Moms for the daily, it is starting to turn down right here. So let's you know, here's what I want to do for this video, because I don't trade on weekends. I don't care to trade on weekends. I haven't really been carrying to trade like the last weeks or two. It's just options positions here and there. Bowling Picks Moms showing downside momentum on the daily, very likely to confirm. Very likely to confirm on today's daily total closure. I don't really see anything else that's like obviously pointing down. So if Bally and Pigs Moms gets, it just sounds funny to say, but if they get this one right, when no other tools that I have right now are suggesting the same thing, and you'll know that they'll be right if Bitcoin tests back down to like 9,000 or 8,900-ish region, then that's going to be one of my new main drivers, because I don't have anything else suggesting that right now. At least not off the top of my head. In fact, if anything, my other momentum oscillators are painting a more bullish picture here. So very, very interesting. Jewel is a little bit more angled towards the downside as well. So maybe the Jewel and Bolly's moms, maybe they agree with each other. Who knows? Anyways, Jesus Christ, man, this video is 45 minutes long. I apologize for the length of this video, but thank you for listening to my raspy lesbian voice. I'll be signing off now. I want to thank you massively once again. Oh, and I also want to give a massive shout out to Mitch Ray. Mitch Ray, apparently he was saying some, or I was listening to one of his videos the other day, and he said some very nice things about me, and I really appreciate that, man. And you know what? I only have mutual respect to give back to you, because that's fucking awesome, man. You know, it's what, you know, one of the guys that's really stood the test of times. And while I don't necessarily go out of my way to watch other people, you know, it's just not really, well, I'm working on other things right now, but overall, you know, a guy who's been consistent, a guy who's been in the game, and a guy who I don't personally know all that well myself, but I can say if there's someone who I can immediately identify as he speaks right, and he has very nuanced from what it looks like, nuanced, and also in-depth views on the market, and not, you know, falling into the fucking moon boy hopes and dreams. He seems like a great guy for that, and doesn't just cover fucking crypto either, which I think is pretty damn cool. So you don't really feel like when you listen to him that you're getting one of those like viewing the crypto world through a rose-colored glass. So yeah, man, you know, I can only give him praise, and if you haven't checked him out, definitely check him out. His streams are a little bit different, very, 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 very long form, which some people will love, some people might not love. Fair enough, but hey, man, mutual respect and massive thank you. I sincerely say that. Anyways, for everyone else, I want to massively thank you once again. Regardless, I would like to wish you the best of the best. Take care, and until next time.